Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The media is one of the four pillars of our democracy. In order to be taken seriously, it must be above reproach. It should be to a higher moral drum. If the media is betraying the public interest by, for example, allegedly cheating the state of taxes, then it should be brought to book. That is what one would believe, because just because you're the media, should you be exempt from the laws of the land, including tax laws? This, in short, is the defense that is being put out by the government for justifying the prolonged survey of British broadcasting company BBC. But ladies and gentlemen, for the second consecutive day, taxmen continue to do their survey at the BBC offices both in Delhi and Mumbai. A dozen income tax sleuths are still camping at the Mumbai office, while in New Delhi the grilling of few employees is still underway. The focus of the surveys on BBC is to look into manipulation of prices for unauthorized benefits, including tax advantages. Sources have told Times Now that the financial transactions since 2012 are under the scanner. The Income Tax Department has stated to our reporters that the pattern of three keywords, namely shell company, fund transfer and transfer of money abroad, found on the analyzed laptops and computers could lead to blowing the lid of some tax evasion that could have taken place, but they're still taking a full look at what this issue could lead on to. But even before the income tax sleuths get to a conclusion, the ecosystem has seen a pattern behind the survey that is being carried out. It says that the media company is being punished for taking up the cudgels to air the truth about Prime Minister Modi's alleged role of 2002 Gujarat riots, even after the Supreme Court verdict on the same. Listen in to the opposition voices.
Well, when it suited BJP during emergency, their leaders used to praise BBC. And in fact, now the leaders have quoted in his book that he used to listen to BBC radio while during an emergency.
It is not only affecting the freedom of press. There will be no media in this country. Media is already controlled by them. I'm sorry to say, मीडिया कैन नॉट रेज देयर वॉइस।
अरे देखिए, तो मैं तो कह रही हूँ कि G20 का एक तरफ से G20 का वो जो है वो उसकी बार बार बात करते हैं, विश्व गुरु की बात करते हैं, दूसरी तरफ से आप BBC जैसी जो क्रेडिबल एजेंसी है, न्यूज एजेंसी है, उस पर छापा मारते हो।
तो जो संस्था विज्ञापनों पर निर्भर नहीं है, जिस संस्था का प्रॉफिट और लॉस का टेम्पलेट नहीं है, उस पे भारत के इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट की क्या ज्यूरिसडिक्शन बनती है, यह कोई मुझे समझा दे, मोदी जी को समझा दे।
यूएसए का प्रत्येक नागरिक जानता है कि गुजरात में नरसंहार के जिम्मेदार कौन है। इसमें नई बात क्या है? तीसरा, दुनिया में जो हमारा इंटरनेशनल फ्रीडम प्रेस का जो इंडेक्स है, मोदी रिजीम के बाद वो एक थर्ड क्लास लेवल पे आ चुका है।
Ladies and gentlemen, let me decode how a narrative has always been built whenever the so-called crusaders of free press come on the radar of the government. When the ED started its probe against Amnesty India in 2022, the Human Rights Watch group stated that Indian officials are targeting a certain group which is doing yeoman service in India. When the homes of editors belonging to The Wire were raided, Committee to Protect Journalists stated that it has told officials to stop harassment of journalists, while the BBC gave a headline saying that FIR was filed against Wire on a complaint by Amit Malviya, the IT cell chief of the BJP. But we all know that the same publication had to retract that story for printing fake news. The same ecosystem is terming the tax raids on the freedom of press and linking the documentary released by the BBC on Prime Minister Modi, the reason behind the survey. The Committee to Protect Journalists once again has raised the war cry that journalists are being harassed in this country. Vice President Jagdish Dhankar recently warned of a targeted attack by forces to undermine India's growth story. Is there truth in what he had to warn this country about? Listen in.
India is on the rise. Sinister designs are there to set afloat a narrative by free fall of information. We have to be alert. This is another way of invasion. We have to boldly neutralize it. We have to instill in us a spirit of nationalism. We cannot allow free fall of doctored narratives to run down our growth story.
The government has clearly delinked the survey at the BBC offices and the timing of the documentary. It has raised the question on why people were still silent when the same BBC faced scrutiny in UK in 2018. Listen in to the INB official Kanchan Gupta.
3 quick points. One, this has no bearing at all with what BBC writes, reports, or puts out. 2, BBC faces similar charges, allegations, and proven charges in the UK, its home country. 3, if the government wanted to be vindictive, if we wanted to be vindictive, and if we wanted to go after the BBC or any other news outlet for writing against the Prime Minister or the government, we would have done it at any point of time. And especially the BBC, it could have been targeted anytime after 2014.
So that brings me to the legitimate question on the NewsHour tonight. Whose narrative is sullying the survey? That's the question and the debate. Hashtag BBC searched. The debate on the other side.
You're watching the NewsHour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
Joining the debate tonight, Shazia Ilmi, spokesperson of the BJP, Suhail Seth, columnist, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, senior fellow of the IPCS, Kamruzaman Chaudhary, leader of the Congress, Riju Dutta, spokesperson of the Trinamool Congress, Majid Haidri, political analyst. But it is to Mr. Riju Dutta that my question goes first. Riju Dutta ji, democracy is dead. Freedom of speech, freedom of expression, all dead. Because questions have been asked on tax laws and who's following the tax laws of the country. I just want to ask you, are media companies exempt from paying taxes?
Navika ji, media companies are not above the law. The law should take its own course. But, you know, the current affairs in the country reminds me of a quote by Idi Amin, the former president and dictator of Uganda, that in my country there is freedom of speech, but I cannot guarantee your freedom after you give your speech. The Prime Minister at one point of time said BBC was the most credible organization. And now, once the documentary came out, where he was asked, if in 2002, if you could have done anything better, he said, I did not control the media better. It is there in the documentary. And now, yes, everybody knows the media is controlled by the BJP and the critics have been silenced in this country. But these kind of, cheap tactics, revenge politics and vendetta politics to, send IT, ED, CBI and all these central organizations against anybody who raises questions against the Prime Minister or the current central disposition is the lowest of the low. You know, this is very unfair, this is very biased, and if this continues, the fourth pillar of constitution in this country will not only crumble, will fall eventually to the ground. And I think this should not happen. And as the Prime Minister of 140 crore people, as the Vishwaguru, he should not be so chui-mui, and he should take criticism on the face.
All right. All right. So you're saying that even the West Bengal government will not file any FIRs against journalists in the future. Are you saying that, sir?
At least, madam, unlike UP, journalists are not stripped here for writing a political story against the ruling party or the ruling MLA.
Okay.
Journalists are safe in Calcutta, in West Bengal.
FIRs notwithstanding.
Ma'am, what is FIRs for companies like you?
Okay. All right. What is FIR for companies like you? So we don't need protection, but BBC does. So he'll say, BBC, which is being questioned in UK for tax evasion, has paid a fine of £8.3 million and is still negotiating some of the other tax claims that have been made. There is no bias in UK against the BBC, but if India asks them to pay taxes or looks at even looks at tax avoidance charges, then India is biased. How do you respond to that, Suhail said?
You know, there's a state in the east of India where a professor from a university was picked up because of a post in which he allegedly made or cast aspersions on a very demure chief minister. And it took him 2 or 3 years to actually get rid of that case. But we won't mention the state in eastern India or that demure chief minister. Number one. Number two, BBC is not above the law, nor is Times of India, nor is Riju, nor is Shazia, nor is anyone else. If the law has been broken, the law needs to take its course. I said many months ago on your program, Navika, with my good friend Riju in attendance as always, that when Partho Chatterjee was arrested because they found crores and crores of rupees, the ED obviously didn't plant those crores in order to arrest him. The man was a crook, he got arrested. Mamata Banerjee later, rightly so, washed her hands off him. So the point I'm making is don't jump to conclusions. There is only one issue here, Navika, and that issue is, which I've always said about this government, with due apologies to my good friend Shazia, who is also present this evening. This government has a knack of doing good, but getting messed over because of its inability to communicate. The tragedy with this government is that it makes so many errors in its outreach in terms of communication. Now, here's the case. This is what the situation is. Number one, it is not a raid. It is a survey. In a survey, people actually the income tax department conducts a survey if you do not respond to their queries, which are again given under the purview of the Income Tax Act. Number one. Number two, I totally agree with some people in the opposition. Everyone will say the timing is suspect. Could this not have been done earlier? I don't know. Is the timing suspect? Now you are playing into the hands of people saying, "Bhai, abhi documentary hui, ab raid ho rahi hai," because they don't understand the difference between a raid and a survey. Number three, this holier than thou attitude of some people in politics is very distressing. You know, my good friend who represents the Congress will now want to forget what happened on June 25, 1975. And what thereafter, what happened. There were many of these editors today who are so-called the left liberal ideologues of society who actually went to prison, as did people like Arun Jaitley, as did people like Virender Kapoor, another formidable journalist. So point I'm making is there are three issues here. Shall we allow any media organization, be it the Times Group, be it BBC, be it NDTV, be it CNN, allowed to get away because they're the media? The answer is no. You can be a pillar of democracy, but you can't be a pillar with termites in it, which you will hide, but we cannot, remove. The second is the government must come out with some level of clarity through the Income Tax Department as to what the issues were. The reason why I'm saying this, Navika, is because from this morning, and will continue for the next 1 week, India will be seen as an intolerant country towards or qua the freedom of the press. These people will make a tax evasion into a fight for the freedom of the press, which, by the way, is another misnomer, but it's going to happen. The third is we need to have, as we are having this evening, and I'm delighted that not one of my co-panelists has interrupted me, we need to have a civilized debate on how democracies are going to be run when one of the pillars behaves, either goes rogue or behaves in a manner that is not in consonance with the law. These are my limited points. I have no issues. All politicians choose to retaliate in some form or the other. If this is a retaliation, it is a retaliation within the purview of the law. Do what you want. Finally, we have a judiciary in place. As when I last checked, there were three people, one woman and two gentlemen, who had filed a PIL in the Supreme Court qua the BBC thing. Let's wait for that verdict. It's a very simple thing. You know, now to throw the baby with the bathwater, accuse Narendra Modi, accuse India, tarnish everyone, that's ridiculous.
Well, so let me ask Shazia Ilmi. Shazia Ilmi, is there a problem with the communication of the government?
Thank you.
Is a problem with the communication of the government? Is there a problem with the perception that the government, comes after those who say anything against them? And that really is a perception the opposition is playing on. And that's what politics is all about. So why is the BJP, why is the government crying foul? Because they'll grab their opportunities whenever they get them, and you give them plenty.
Navika, to be fair, we have braved it umpteen times. This is all the other ecosystem seems to rely upon. Because, whether it's Pegasus or Rafale or Forbidden Stories or, our own left liberal ideologues, as my friend Suhail calls them, the bleeding hearts, they seem to have a problem only with this particular government. I, for instance, want to raise this point and tell you just not so far away. I mean, let's not even go to the emergency era, but let's just look at what happened just barely a decade back or even less, is when during the Anna Hazare Andolan, some of us were thrown in, beaten up. Dr. Jiranian was thrown in because he was calling out UPA 2's corruption. We know what happened to Baba Ramdev and his Andolan. And not just that, I mean, going further, as far as BBC is concerned, they seem to denigrate the competence and authority of the Supreme Court. And I refuse to be, have to apologize for what the Income Tax Department is doing. Because, I mean, you indulge in corruption, TMC, and there would be ED after you. You try to evade taxes and be non-compliant, BBC, News Laundry, even Z, because even Z has been raided and it's not known to be a totally anti-BJP channel. So you will face the law. So that's it. And I think once your attitude is so clear that there is indeed non-compliance and there is indeed evasion and there is indeed something fraudulent that needs to cover up and there are no answers being given to the notices that have been sent, a process that began in UPA 2, well, people will, authorities would do their job. So, and my advice to the TMC person would be, journalists there are scurrying for cover, for fear of being called out. So it's very rich when you talk about, how intolerant and fascist, which have become like really empty words now, without any meaning and hollow, because people also know that, you cry foul only because whether it's the ED or the IT, they're acting in accordance with the law and their notices have been given earlier. And mostly, I mean, BBC, I mean, why would be so taken in and be such brown sahibs when it comes to BBC? I mean, who cares? Nobody
No,
spoke
if you don't care, then
channels.
maybe these searches or surveys could have been done in December. Why are they being done in February is a question many will ask. Communication, timing, all of these questions will be asked, and these are valid questions, Shazia Ilmi. But what is also a valid question, Mr. Kamru Zaman Chaudhary?
But the timing is never correct. But this is not But this is not the first time that BBC has been critical. It seems that every story of BBC, if you were to look at 99%, there's something wrong and evil that Modi government is doing. So there's more of the same. And as for the opposition, this is all they do. I mean, since 8 years, I have been debating this, and all of us have been here talking about just how intolerant this government is. Who would want to believe that there is no freedom of press?
Well, so let me get in Kamru Zaman Chaudhary. Let me get in Kamru Zaman Chaudhary. Kamru Zaman Chaudhary, we are all sitting on a channel, prime time, 9 o'clock, and we are debating BBC. Now, if there wasn't any freedom of press, then we wouldn't be debating. You wouldn't be allowed to come on this channel. You wouldn't be allowed to say one word sideways. So what are we talking about? Freedom of speech mar gayi, democracy mar gayi, hai, tauba, every time. And look at the manner in which this ecosystem works. Amnesty International is raided, hi, democracy is dead. Why? Because they haven't filed certain FCRA or whatever, those foreign remittances provisions of the law, and they have to follow the law of the land, but they haven't done it. But you do any action on them, then you're against freedom of NGOs, human rights, and everybody comes out almost as if there is some jugalbandi going on. First, Human Rights Watch will come out, and today they have come out and they've reached the G20 presidency. That G20 members should put pressure on India so that freedom of press is not, suppressed in India. I want to ask you, Kamru Zaman Chaudhary, same Amnesty International, same CPJ, same Human Rights Watch, and the same Congress Party. अब फॉरेन हैंड इंदिरा गांधी के समय में था, ये फॉरेन हैंड अब भी है, कुछ बदला ही नहीं है, तो फिर आपको तो इन सब चीजों की आदत होनी चाहिए.
Navika, first and foremost, are you going to pretend that the entire exercise was all about the tax service? I doubt it. Because the entire premise that we are getting out here is a message is being conveyed to the core constituency of the ruling party that Modi and his government is trying to convey that, look, if you try to raise your voice, if you try to publish reports which are not inimical to the government and its style of politics, we will do what we are doing with the BBC. This is a grave warning to those free press people. Navika, may I say that even you are also in danger. No, if not today, tomorrow.
My friend, disclosure time. I was in danger in the UPA Sarkar with a salary of 35-40,000. I was under survey by the income tax department for 3 years. For 3 years, no. Sir.
Navika.
Now, were you sending me a message then, sir?
No, Navika, the difference then where you were critical of the government, then now you are in supportive of the government.
So then I was critical of the UPA government. So were you sending me a message, sir? Then are you not guilty of the same that you are objecting to today?
No, Navika, I don't want to get you into this debate, particularly when we are discussing.
It's a live and kicking example.
When we are discussing a very important issue. You know, people like you might be somewhere in corner of India, might be writing an investigative article, might be writing about a cover story, or might be writing about a piece about, let's say, majoritarian politics that we are witnessing, about hate politics that we are witnessing, about maybe the type of politics that Shazia Ilmi's party is doing now in India. It's a cruel message. It's a clear message that is given out to these people. Beware, otherwise what has happened to you will happen, or what has happened to the BBC will also be happening to you. So fall in line, otherwise we are there for you. Because the basic point that every Indian is asking now, when 1% of the country's GDP is in peril at the hands of Adani, when those charges that are framed against BBC are much graver are charged against Adani Group or alleged against Adani Group, where is the ED, where is the CBI, where is the Income Tax Department, where is the FERA, FEMA, where is the MCA? What are they doing? We need to answer those questions.
Okay. All right. So let me get Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Abhijit Iyer Mitra. NewsClick has been raided.
All are there.
NewsClick has been raided. Wire has been raided. Bhaskar has been raided. Others have been raided. Message has still not gone over the last 9 years. Only after BBC is being surveyed, message will go across to everybody ke bhai hate pe likhoge, so you will meet. What is Kamru Zaman Chaudhary trying to argue?
I don't know what he's trying to argue. Why do we leave Z News out of the equation? Because apparently Z News is Godi media. It is the godiest of Godi media as per these people. But they also had tax raids on them. Kuch hua uska? No, what were they raided for? For speaking in support of the government? Was that collusion between the Z management and government to show, no, we will also raid friendly houses? See, the fact is the ED's workforce has been increased exponentially over the last few years to detect financial crimes.
But this is not the ED, this is the income tax. ED is not even in business right now.
Exactly, it is not even, thank God it has not gone to IT. The point is they still queue each other because, as you know, there is a common set of 24 databases that all these economic offences wings look at. Now, let's look at BBC specifically. First of all, when did the BBC suddenly gain credibility? The BBC belongs to a country that has banned Russian TV and all pro-Russian anything outright. But they then claim freedom in every other country. There is, the BBC supported that entire weapons of mass destruction thing. They supported regime change in Libya, in Iraq, and Al-Qaeda. They supported Al-Qaeda in Syria. BBC is on record calling them Islamist moderates. Democratic Islamist moderates.
In fact,
so you have
they've called the Indian army as violative of human rights, but the Taliban doing a great job.
Great job. Now, all of this doesn't take away from the fact that this government is fantastically colossal at mismanaging the narrative, as Suhail said. Right? There was only one company, one media company in India that had ever been given a tax exemption, and that was PTI. In this budget, that tax exemption has been removed, and there is an 80 crore pending tax exemption dues or levies still outstanding for them. I can also tell you that everybody is also talking about a certain media group that gave out a human resources contract worth 15 crores to a certain consulting group. And that consulting group has further subcontracted it to that same media group's owner's company. Everybody knows about it. Apparently, the ITED, everybody knows about it. And obviously, these people will do absolutely nothing about it till that particular news group comes in the news for something negative that they've done. And that is the way this government rolls. Now, look, I can't compensate for government incompetence. So if this government's media management is this incompetent, they have to look at themselves. That doesn't take away from the case against the BBC.
That's the point.
You know,
and that's the point, Majid Haidri. When people like Mehbooba Mufti come out and say the only credible media institution. Why? Because they call Burhan Wani charismatic, so they become credible. Despite, an apology. Sorry?
Well, they
what
got
is
the map
Mehbooba
of
Mufti
Jammu and
commenting
Kashmir
on
wrong.
the press?
Well,
I mean, these are my problem, Navika, is I'm so sorry, Majid, please forgive me. Just one small interruption. These people, the muftis of the world, have lived off the fat of the land, and just not her. All these people in Jammu and Kashmir, and today they want to talk about corruption. I mean, it's like asking Fulan Devi to, be the teller in a branch. I mean, ridiculous. Sorry, Majid. I'm so sorry. Please.
Well, so Majid Haidri, she calls BBC credible and everybody else incredible. Now, is this some new, measuring system that we suddenly have with the opposition parties where credibility certificates are being granted?
Navika Sahib, it's always an honor to share dice. Suhail said, Saab, so this one is for you. In fact, this Suhail bhai आपके लिए है. कुछ तो BBC कहेगी, BBC का काम है कहना. छोड़ो BBC की डॉक्यूमेंट्री को, हमें हिसाब दो हिंडनबर्ग रिसर्च का. I don't really know whether IT cellules will ever research the Hindenburg research. But yes, with regard to BBC, it's the typical classical case of shooting down the messenger. Because our government is wanting us to be confused about the foreign media. Because when on October 2, 2019, my Honorable Prime Minister writes an article, he doesn't write it for any Indian newspaper, he writes it for New York Times. But the next day when New York Times says that Mehroli houses of a particular community are being demolished by a Kejriwal government in alliance with BJP, our BJP government has a problem. We have to obey by
the nation embarrassed, my friend. UK, US, nobody said anything. In fact, France has yesterday, on the day BBC was being surveyed and you were so upset, you know, France has had no problems with India. So what's your problem? Where does it hurt you?
My problem is with shooting the messenger. This is simple. Everybody knows shooting the messenger. This is what BBC is doing here.
No,
so this is not sending a good signal. We are
Abhijit Iyer Mitra, which messenger is being shot here?
But what messenger is the BBC exactly? Tell me, what has the BBC said that hundreds of Indian publications have not said before? उन सबको shoot किया गया है क्या? नहीं ना?
Why have you come up with a raid on them?
But it's not a raid.
But you, how are you connecting? Do you have any proof? See, the way this country works is innocent until proven guilty. You are drawing a correlation between a raid and a documentary.
Snatches mobile phones, please. Mobile phones are not snatched. Media persons are not to be harassed. We are world's largest democracy. We need to set an example of being a democracy.
No. What democracy? What democracy? The paragons of democracy, America and this one have banned Russia TV, no? No, they banned Russia TV.
Are we not supposed to be a democracy?
No. But UK is a democracy. Riju Dutta, that's the point. UK is a democracy.
What democracy?
UK is a democracy. Not one word from all of you when Russians were banned from there. Russian media was banned from UK. आपको तो दर्द नहीं हुआ. What happened to democracy in UK? What happened to BBC? Did they carry any program?
Navika ji, I can't care less about the UK. I'm a resident of India. Let me talk about India. My only pointed questions are this, and if anybody can answer, even Suhail ji can answer this. Number one, there's a survey, not a raid, there's a survey on the BBC. Why there is no survey on Adani ji? Why does the ED gets conjunctivitis every time it is somebody from BJP or the Prime Minister's friends? And the case which was mentioned that in a East state, sir, let me finish. Can I?
I am very fond of you. I will allow you to finish till kingdom come. Bolo, Baba, bolo. Bolo.
Yeah. So last two in an East India state, where one particular person was, under legal peril, and he came completed all this after 2 years. His case was raised in the parliament, but you know what he said? He said that the situation is worse in BJP states. That is a slap that came out of the syllabus. And I want to ask the BJP spokies one thing: why they always go into this whataboutery? UPA ne ye kiya, Congress ne ye kiya, to hum ye karenge. If they did, that's why they are not in power. You are in power. So how are you better than them? Now, Suhail sir, aapni hame jawab de din.
Okay, Suhail first, and then I'm coming to you, Shazia.
I will reply.
No, in fact,
I will reply.
I'm coming to you, Shazia. Suhail first.
I'll reply point by point. Number one, the whataboutery has been done by you. We're discussing BBC have brought in Adani. So, hammam mein sab nange hain. Remember that. Turkish bath, everyone is naked. Number two, the point, Riju, that we are making is no one is above the law. No one is sacred. Nothing is sacrosanct. Because you're the BBC, or because you're the Bennett Coleman Group, or because you're Trinamool Congress, doesn't mean that no one should touch you. As I said, in Punjabi, there's a phrase, "Endu lattu lagin," which means, do bulbs come out of your body? No. You're part of the legal system. Worst scenario is, if you don't like to work in India and operate within Indian laws, please go home. Go to Fiji, go to Spain, go wherever the hell you want. You cannot be in this country and then say, oh, because I'm the media, I'm above the law. And let me tell you, Riju, the time has come when the media also needs to be exposed for a lot of corruption that happens at its end. The BBC has been exposed continuously in the UK. In India, they have been violating transfer pricing norms. This is part of government record. The HMRC has investigated them, not you, Her Majesty at that time.
Shazia Ilmi, the last question was to you, 30 seconds. Respond to Riju Dutta.
So, Riju, I would like to just to tell you that according to the sources in this case, what BBC has been found, what is being probed or is being carried out in the survey is very clear. It's been found non-compliant under transfer pricing rules, and there has been persistent and deliberately it's been violative of transfer pricing norms. And there are stories about tax evasion and of diversion of profits. Those are serious matters. As my friend Abhijit pointed out, there are other channels too which have been raided indeed, and in fact raids have been conducted and not surveys because of irregularities found in their account books. So why shouldn't this happen here? And why should you jump to the rescue of every such
if the narrative of the opposition is being questioned, then the perception of the government and its communication will also come under attack. Both sides need to do some evaluation on this, because at the end of the day, there is a message, there is a perception, and that perception equally makes what India is all about today. And that perception is also important to manage. We leave it at that. Thank you very much to my panelists for joining me on debate number 1.